Hi guys, I'm back with another video. This time I'm painting Gimli from The Lord of the Rings. If you didn't know, one of my favorite, probably my favorite fantasy series ever, favorite book series ever, and favorite movie series ever. The unfortunate thing about this one is that I started to paint him before I started the time lapse. I knew I was going to do that. I knew I was going to forget, and I was like, Emily, don't forget, and then I forgot. So I'm sorry, I got one eye slightly done, and his nose, and then some eyebrows, but I guess you didn't really miss out on much of that. You can see the sketch underneath still. Yeah, I don't know what to say about this one really. It was fun. It was a challenge, but it was fun. The face wasn't nearly as difficult as I thought it would be. It just kind of came together. One thing I was thinking about while I was painting the face was the fact that the actor John Rhys-Davies, the whole time they were filming, of course everyone knows this if they've seen the behind the scenes or anything, he was having an allergic reaction to the prosthetics. So you can actually, I feel like you can see in many of the scenes that his eyelids were kind of puffy. And I think initially I was working right off the reference photo, so they look pretty puffy, but I didn't want him to look like not that there's anything wrong with how he looked, but I did end up sort of changing that towards the end, especially on the right eye, the one that's on the left side. So that was the main thing. That really the only challenge with the face, I think. Otherwise it was just like really coming together. I guess the hair, the beard and stuff, I started it and I was like, uh-oh, how am I gonna finish this? And then somehow it also just came together by the end. So it was fun. It was a fun experiment. This is for practice, right? And I feel like I did learn a lot. The trickiest part was definitely the helmet, and I knew this was going to be hard. Initially, what I wanted to do was do this in oil pastels, and I decided eventually I don't think I can do that because the paper that I have for oil pastels is so small, and I don't think I could do those details. Not that you have to do all of the details when you're using oil pastel. Some of the best things about oil pastel is sort of the abstract shapes you can make that when you step back look like the thing you want, and that's okay. I do have another paper that I haven't tested specifically with oil pastels yet. I have with soft like chalk pastels, but I didn't really like it, and I got it from a secondhand store, so I don't know if I doubt it's because the paper's old, but I just didn't really like it with those. So I could try that paper out with the oil pastels, but we'll see. For this one I just decided to do it digitally, and I liked how it was coming out even without blending. I didn't blend like basically anything except like the base layer of the helmet. Like you can kind of see the round bit is a bit blended out. Just the base, right? So I could layer on top of it. But other than that, I didn't blend anything until the very end. And honestly, I really dig it unblended. I saved the layer. Like I duplicated the layer so that the one that's unblended I still have. And I don't know. I don't know which one I like better. I do like how it looks blended and rendered out, but I feel like it lost a lot of contrast, so maybe someday I could go back in and add a bit more contrast. I just kept going back and forth because every time I'd blend out it sort of lose definition, but I kind of just wanted to be done. I was like, okay, he's good, I'm done. So realistically, will I go back? Probably not. When I feel like something's done, it's done. It's done. We don't have to keep worrying about it. That's when you get to the point where you just ruin it, right? When you feel satisfied and then you keep going, you just regret your choices. So generally, I mean, in my experience. So I think there's something good about finishing when you feel like being finished instead of striving for perfection. But I don't know. We'll see if I do end up going back. I don't think so. You'll see what I mean when I go and blend it out later. At like the very, very end. But yeah, now we're getting to the fun part here. And by fun, I mean the biggest challenge, which is the pattern on the helmet, which it's really cool. It's really cool, and it's amazing that people actually like made this helmet. Initially, it was going pretty well. The top portion here, I was like, oh, that looks kind of like those S's that we all drew in middle school. So that worked out alright. I just went up with the lightest color and worked from that. I did end up getting the photo and putting it on top, and then using, it's just a random color. Oh yeah, here it is. I just could not figure out where to place what, and these are not the most accurate marks. Half of these marks I didn't even know, was this the light part, was this the shadow, I don't know. I just had to, I couldn't envision in my mind each individual part. So I just did that real quick. And then I properly got to rendering. Basically, I took the reference and I just zoomed in to the area, like really far in, like ridiculously far in. And rendered each part individually so I could not get confused. It was like seeing all of it together that got me really confused. And as you'll see in just a minute, I ended up painting over all those lines basically anyway, like the ones on his forehead. Those get completely painted over because I was like, bruh, I don't need these anymore. That's just confusing me. So I took it piece by piece, and it turned out in the end. So once I could wrap my head around it, then I could zoom out and properly render it. But before that, just geometric shapes, man. My brain doesn't like them. I don't like drawing buildings. I don't like drawing cars. This was hard. See, there I go. I painted over. I was like, I don't need that. I don't want it. Get it out of my face. So once I figured out I could zoom in and like ignore the rest, like literally the window I had of the reference image cut off the rest, so I could only look at a small piece at a time, which I wouldn't recommend for everything because you do have to look at the bigger picture, but it really helped me just not get confused. So that worked out. On this side that I'm painting now, I went down with a darker color, and I was like, okay, this will be so much easier for me to like wrap my head around if I just do one light color, the designs in one light color, right, and just draw over it. And it worked out, but I did not do that for the other side. I was like, I don't want to do that again. So the other side I just winged it, but I guess by then maybe my brain was warmed up a bit and it was not as difficult. I did not get as confused. So you'll see what I mean when we get there. Here it was really just like put down the dark, put down the light, and then put some shadows to give it more dimension. Then put a little darker parts in the light part. You know what I mean. So it wasn't just one solid color. And you'll see here, and now I went in with the shadows. I didn't go over with the dark. I don't know why. I don't know why it worked this time. On this side, it was fine. So, yeah. Not much else to say about that. I'm just glad it's over. It was a good challenge, but I don't know why it was so challenging. You wouldn't think it would be, because they're kind of just... They are shapes that make sense, but to me it was just really hard to make it make sense. Maybe, I think part of it was the reference image is not very high quality. So when I zoomed in, there were parts where I couldn't tell what was raised versus what wasn't. So if it's not completely accurate, oops, sorry, but I think it works. The lines aren't perfectly straight. I for a while got caught up on trying to make them perfectly straight, and I kept undoing and redoing them, and I was like, wait a minute, the rest is pretty painterly, so why am I trying to do this? It doesn't mesh with the rest of the painting if I try to do like perfectly straight lines. So they're not, and I think that's good. I think your brain really likes it. Like, that's why when you look at a sketch, you're like, oh yeah, that's cool. And then when you do the line art, you're like, why is that not tickling my brain in the same way? Why is this boring now? Why do I hate it? And I read that that's because your eyes never see something like in real life. They never see it as like a solid line. It's always moving. It's always moving. Your eyes are always moving, even if it's like imperceptible to you. So that's why sketchy lines look good, and that's why I really like a painterly style, I suppose. So I kept that in mind the whole time, trying not to be perfect, because every time I try to get too caught up in the details and make things too perfect with like the tiniest brush, it just doesn't look good. I don't like it. Some people like that style. It's not me. So I tried to keep my brush big, like bigger than I was tempted to make it, so that I could keep it loose, basically, so I wouldn't get all tight. So yeah, the side parts here, I don't know what you'd call them. The wings. I don't know. Not as challenging as the upper part, but I was having a hard time with the light and shadow here for a while. So I hope it came out all right. It was yet again, especially in the darker spots, or where the spots in the reference image where it goes from light to dark, where it gets really dark. The quality's just not there in the image, and it was really hard to distinguish what shapes were where. So I probably made up some things, but I think it's fine. It's fine. It looks good in the end, so that's all that matters. I can't even see. Oh yeah, I was fixing up the eye a bit, and then working on the beard. I just hated how stark it looked between the skin and then where the hair starts, so I spent a lot of time trying to blend that, but not with a mix brush, not like blending and smudging, but like, because the strands of hair, right, they're solid. So I went into this thinking I really shouldn't blend out much of the hair because it's quite textured. It's beard hair. It's kind of wiry. And I was tempted to go in with a smaller brush, but again, I wanted to keep it pretty loose. So towards the end, I do some pieces of a smaller brush in like a more highly contrasting color, like where the light catches some hair. But at this point, I'm just trying to blend each part, like where the light's hitting the most, into like the mid tones, and then the darkest parts. And then obviously I have to use, basically I was using the darkest shadows obviously to create the shapes, like the deepest part. And it was of course kind of hard to separate the braids from the rest of the beard, but I think I got there. Like, drawing braids, I can't do it. I can't. And I love braids because I wear braids every day. I wear pigtail braids every day because I have long hair and it gets annoying. And my default hairstyle is either a bun on top of my head when I'm at home, or pigtail braids when I'm out. And drawing braids, impossible. My brain just cannot comprehend. Similarly to the helmet, my brain cannot comprehend the shapes of braids. But then when I was painting this, I was like, okay, we're going light, dark, light, dark, light, dark in the direction of hair. And somehow it ended up looking like hair. I don't know how that happened, but it did. And I think it looks like hair. What do you think? Does it look like hair? I think so. And then I went on to the clothes, which, you know, a little back and forth between the hair and the clothes because the hair is covering up his armor and stuff. But in terms of the chainmail, I obviously wasn't gonna render out every little ring, every little shadow, because that would just take away. Like, we want to look at his face, we want to look at the cool design on his helmet, we want to keep the rest not in focus, basically. So not that I was gonna blur everything out like a vignette, but basically the details that aren't so important are not gonna get a lot of detail. So that would be things like the rings and like the pattern of the leather. I brought a little bit of it out in the lower right corner, but nothing that would draw your eye away from the face, I think, was the main thing. So I just kind of winged it. I was like, I don't know how I'm gonna achieve this, but I'm gonna try. And I think it turned out. I liked how the light catched on some of the parts of the leather, so that was fun. And then same thing with the background. This is even more, there's like, I don't even remember where this was, in Moria, I think this was, and probably Balmon's tomb. And there's like, you know, the stonework, the pillars and stuff behind him. And so I just put the basic colors, like grabbed the basic colors around, and then wherever the shadows were, I put in the shadows and then blended in between. And there's a little bit of reddish color, I think from the sunlight that streams in from like the not windows, like the slits in the wall right above his head to the left. And I like that. I think it's just a little hint, and you can see it like comes together with the highlight on his helmet and then his shoulder. And I ended up going back to his face, and here I'm blending and trying my best not to get rid of all of the contrast, but it kept disappearing, so I had to keep going back and putting in more. I like how the light and the shadow helped you see like the lines of his face. And I didn't want them to look unnatural, but I wanted them to be pretty visible. And then I blended a bit more into the beard, and then I thought I'd bring out the highlights in his eyes just a bit more, because they were kind of, his eyes are in shadow, but, and I didn't want bright white, because that doesn't really make sense. But they kind of got the highlights, the catch lights kind of got lost a little bit. So this is how he turned out. Let me know what you think. Oh, I think it's pretty alright. I think it was good practice. I love Gimli. He's one of my favorite characters. And I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, go ahead, give it a like. If you want to see similar videos to this, like more speed painting, I'll try to do some live streams. Go ahead and subscribe. See you next time.